Hi, turkeys. I brought a very special story with me today, and I wonder if you can see what is on the cover of this story. It's a very magical creature. And I remember that the second biggest country in Asia, which is called China, uses this magical creature as one of its country's symbols. And this creature is a dragon. It's a dragon. And I wonder if you remember that in China, dragons mean good luck. So we also see some other creatures on the cover of this story. This story is called Trafalgar True. And this story was written by Stephen Cosgrove, and it was illustrated by Robin James. Far, far away, in a time of dreams and make-believe, there was a small, curious country called Curium. Curium wasn't much as countries go. A small forest, a medium-sized meadow, and a twisting crystal stream. What made Curium very special was that right in the middle of the meadow lived the most magnificent winged dragon called Trafalgar True. Trafalgar didn't do much from one day to the next. He would sit and he would quietly watch the world go round. And Trafalgar loved every living thing, and watching to him was the same as doing. Trafalgar would watch the flock of birds as they flew from tree to tree, and he would watch a turtle or two as they crawled across the meadow. But most of all, he loved to watch the furry little creatures called kith and kin. There was very little difference between a kith and a kin. They both had long bushy tails and big brown eyes. In fact, the only difference was that kith's fur was black with a long white stripe down the middle, while kin's fur was white with a long black stripe down the middle. All day, every day, they would skitter about the forest playing games with one another in the happiest of ways, filling Trafalgar with love for them all. Everyone would have been happy to this day if, early one morning, a piece of sun had not fallen from the sky and landed right in the middle of Trafalgar's meadow. When the dust had settled, Trafalgar saw the most beautiful sunstone that he had ever seen. The morning light danced and glittered from the stone, making everything seem a little bit brighter. It couldn't have been more than a moment or two before all of the kith and kin had gathered around to gaze at the sunstone's beauty. They were oohing and awing at its brilliance, when either a kith or a kin pushed someone just to get a little bit closer. Soon, kith were pushing kin and kin were pushing kith. "Quit your pushing!" snarled a fuzzy little kin. "Just stand back. In a minute, I will let you see my stone." "Your stone," growled the kith. "It landed on our side of the forest. The stone belongs to the kith." And so it went throughout the day, with the kin grumbling, the kith pushing, and Trafalgar watching in disbelief. The next day was the same, if not a little bit worse. And as the kith and kin tossed insult after insult at one another, why, one poor kith was even tripped as he walked down the path. As he picked himself up, he could hear laughter coming from the bushes around him. "Dumb old kith," giggled the hidden kin. "They think that the sunstone belongs to them, when we all know that the sunstone belongs to us." And then, laughing and chuckling, off they scampered back to the meadow. Trafalgar True sat and watched unnoticed. Where before there was a pleasant little meadow filled with love, there was now nothing but a field of bitterness and jealousy. So saddened was he by this turn of events that the large silver tears began to glide gracefully over his snoot and fall softly onto the ground. It wasn't that the kith hated the kin, or that the kin hated the kith. It was just that each wanted to own the brilliance of the sunstone, and neither knew how to share. All day long there was pushing and shoving as they tried to be closest to the brilliant stone. The kith became so frustrated that later that very same day they threw a vine over the stone and tried to drag it away. The kin, not to be outdone, threw the vine from the other side, and the two silly groups pulled and tugged for nearly 3 hours before they all collapsed, too pooped to pop. In fact, they were so tired from all of that pushing and pulling that they fell fast asleep, right there in the meadow. All that is, save for a baby kin, who stood before the stone and softly cried, "I hate you, sunstone. You're so pretty, but all you have brought us is sadness. I wish that you would go back to the sun." No one ever heard the child except for the stone and a silent figure who watched from beneath a tree. Trafalgar True. A saddened and troubled Trafalgar thought and thought throughout the night, and just before dawn he knew what he had to do. He quietly flexed his wings once or twice, and then he gently flew to the magnificent stone. With all of his might, he clutched the sunstone firmly in his arms, and he began to fly towards the sun as the morning light was just breaking through the trees. The morning air was filled with the soft sighs as the kith and the kin woke from their sleep and gently rubbed their eyes. Suddenly someone shouted, "It's gone! The kith stole the sunstone!" "No!" cried the kith. "It was the kin." And with that, they began shoving and shouting, and a kin even pulled on a kith's tail. There would have been a terrible fight if it had not been for someone who looked up and saw Trafalgar high in the sky. "Look! It's Trafalgar True, and he has got the sunstone." "Oh no!" cried the baby kin. "Trafalgar is trying to fly the sunstone back to the sun." As the kith and kin gazed into the sky, they realized what they had done. "Oh, but he'll be killed," they moaned. "We've got to stop him." And they all looked at one another, trying desperately to think of a way to reach Trafalgar. And suddenly, one furry kith snapped his fingers and said, "I know! We must all shout together, and with all of our voices united, he will surely hear us." Together they formed a circle, and while holding hands they began to shout, "Trafalgar! Trafalgar!" And for a moment it looked as though the plan was going to fail. But then Trafalgar heard the echo of his name. He slowly turned in the sky, and he looked down at the creatures below. "You cannot fly to the sun, for if you do, you will surely die," they cried. "Our selfishness and our greed has almost destroyed you as well as our friendships. Please, please come back." Trafalgar smiled softly and then began to gently glide back to the land of Curium. From that time forward, kith and kin shared alike in the meadow of Curium. They would play around the sunstone in the happiest of ways, filling Trafalgar with love for all of them. So, when it comes to sharing with kith and kin or you.